Aloha, and welcome to another Candid Conversation. We're joined today with a really interesting young man by the name of John Dowling. Of course, everybody's a young man to me now. John is a Marine. I say is a Marine because once a Marine, always a Marine.
Hoorah.
Yeah, and I'm not going to go any further than that. John, why don't you introduce yourself to my audience and tell us who you are, what you do, all the rest of that stuff, and we'll just start our conversation.
Yeah. I guess what you talked about the Marine Corps. I think I was in junior high, and I was watching cartoons, and they had a Marine Corps commercial come on. And if I was going to say old, but
be kind.
But they used to have an officer in his dress blue uniform, and he had his sword, and he'd bring it up, and it said the Marines, the few, the proud, the Marines. And I remember running into the kitchen and telling my mom, like, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to join the Marine Corps. And so that was like seventh grade, I think it was. And so, so 2 weeks after graduate high school, 2 weeks later, I was in San Diego, MCRD, going through Marine Corps boot camp. I was a heavy equipment mechanic in the Marine Corps. And so after I got out of the Marine Corps, I was sitting around the house for a week or two, and I was like, I got to get a job. So I just started telling how old I am. And so I want to say thank you for calling me a young man, because I'll be 50 this year.
Oh,
and
I'm almost 80, young man.
Almost 80, yes. So I'll take young man every day of the week. But to show you how old I am, not as old as some, I've got the big yellow book. It had all the phone numbers in it, and I just started flipping down to like construction equipment dealerships and just calling people on the phone and said, "Hey, I'm a mechanic. I need a job." And so I went to work for Rush Equipment Centers. It was a industrial John Deere dealership in Houston, Texas. They were acquired by Doggett Machinery.
The John Deere side was, yes.
Correct. Yep. And so worked for them for about 3 years or so, and then promoted up to be a field mechanic, and then did that for another couple of years with them, and then left them and went to work for the Case dealership. Ironically, the Case dealership also in Texas in Houston. So Doggett owned the Case dealership, and so I worked for the John Deere dealership and the Case dealership. That Doggett has owned both of them at separate times, and which is kind of ironic. But anyway, so went to work for them for about maybe a year or so as a field mechanic, and then got promoted to service manager, then branch manager, and then I took a role with CNHI. I was a manager of field service operations on the Case IH side, covered Texas and Oklahoma, and then left there and went to work for Chris Wackman. He had just recently acquired Washington County Tractor, and he realized, like, hey, I can continue to buy locations, but if I don't make any money, like, what's the purpose in that? And so he realized his parts and service business, just like every other ag dealership, very sales focused, and so he's like, I need somebody that knows ag, or not ag, but needs somebody who knows parts and service. And so employees that used to work for me were currently working for him. And then the territory manager for New Holland, because they were a New Holland dealer, him and I were good friends. And it was ironically, they all told Chris, like, well, John lives in Brenham, and if you can get a hold of John Dowling, like, he's your guy. And so over several months, I was doing very well at CNH. And at one point, Chris is like, just come work for me, and let's just take over the world, the tractor world. And I was like, well, why not? Let's do it. And so turned down a 2-pay grade promotion with CNH to go work for Chris, and had great success. I mean, I think our initial revenue when I started was like 40 million. And in less than 5 years, we grew it to 139 million. So almost 200% growth. Had over 200% growth in service, about 140%, I think, in parts revenue. Doubled in locations, employees, everything. And so had a great time.